A leader is someone that leads. That leads. That's the key thing. Not builds reports or dashboards. That leads. Playbooks are important because for new reps, there's so many fancy titles out there, and almost like sometimes you don't even know what do you actually do, right? Let's put it down to like affect the bottom line revenue. Like that is your first like responsibility.
Selling is not everyone's forte, and some people actually dread it. But in today's difficult and challenging business world, you need to master certain sales skills in order to win it. Hello and welcome to this episode of Sales Therapy. I'm not your typical host, Alper, ex-sales leader turned co-founder, and this is our talk show, Sales Therapy, where we discuss growth challenges, learn from others' experiences, and hopefully always end on a positive note. In this episode, I'm very happy to be speaking with my dear friend Michael, who is one of the founding members of the very famous sales tech tool, Clary. And today we'll be talking about some very interesting things about his experience of being in the world of complex deals, client relationships, maybe his observations about what leaders are looking for these days to make their lives easier. Michael is super eloquent and super diligent in the way he forms his opinions. I think I really liked having conversations with him previously when we were just building Flowla. And one of the things he really did much better than I did was explain the value of the product back to me in a much more clear way than I ever could, which is why I'm really excited to have somebody with a lot of B2B sales experience. That was a very long intro I did for you there, Mike, but I know you might want to add something from your personal life, but how are you feeling today?
Good. Excited for the conversation. Excited to kind of get through what we plan to cover. So yeah, let's go for it.
Absolutely. So first thing first, before we talk about business work, year end and closing and deals, I like my guests to introduce themselves in their own words. And every good therapy session starts with childhood. So may I ask, where did you grow up? What is your story? Where are you these days? And what's happened in between?
Yeah. That is so true. Every good therapy session starts with childhood. So I grew up I spent the first 10 years of my life in Nigeria, Lagos. I was born in Lagos, Nigeria. I kind of learned how to suffer there for a while, right? And then I came to the UK, learned how to suffer some more, coming from, lower working class background, whatever you want to call it. A single mother working 3-4 jobs at once, going maybe days or maybe even weeks without seeing her, having to live by myself at 10, 11 years old. So that's kind of a little bit about my background, and you probably maybe understand how that shaped my character as I've grown up. I'm obviously now much older, right? Based in the UK. I live in the Garden of England called Kent. So that's a little bit about what I'm doing, where I am right now.
And you have somebody in the background. For those watching the podcast, there is a picture, there's a photo. Would you like to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So this is my baby girl. Her name's Leah Janae. She's awesome. She's totally awesome. Love her to bits.
So you have multiple jobs now.
Yeah, I have like 4 jobs at once. Clary, football agent, husband, dad. So yeah, keeps me busy.
Excellent. And thank you for that intro and being very open about it. That background shapes who you are. And I guess like achieving in life, making mom proud, having a life that is a little bit easier than hers maybe, or helping her out with that. Maybe those things also drive the career progression.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think one thing I got from my mom was just how hard she worked. I think if there's any quality I got from her, quality was just hard work, right? So I'm not an only child. I do have an older brother, a different dad, and just working so many jobs to support me, making sure I got through school, working multiple jobs to support him, make sure he got through school and the challenges that came with that, and then supporting family back in Nigeria because of course the economy is terrible over there. So you find most people here from that kind of African Caribbean background in the UK or US. We're working to send money back home and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of mouths to feed. And when you're watching that, Yeah, it's a lot of mouths to feed. So when you're watching that growing up, you just naturally become a hard worker yourself. You
Yeah,
become someone that you want to be dependable. You want to you want to provide stability to your own family. So I heavily prioritize that in my life, in my career. So you can imagine, like, I've been at Clary for 4 years now. I'm not jumping around anywhere, right? I've been here a long time. And I've made sure that, in that time I've grown quite a lot. I've pushed myself to grow as much as I can, and there's still some more growing to do. But it just comes back to that,
dependable.
hard work mentality,
Yeah,
mouths to feed.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's just the context, I guess.
Okay. I love how we dive into therapy. This is really cool because it's exactly what I want to do. There's a definite relation between who people are and how they are at work and what they try to achieve in career.
Yeah.
Those are not separate things, although we want to
100%.
separate personal life and business life sometimes. Anyway, now coming to bringing you back from Nigerian days to today, how did you start your
Mhm.
career? Like, where did you start your career, and was it always sales first?
Yeah. Involuntarily. So growing up from like my teenage years, I've been heavily like orientated towards sports. I've been a highly, highly competitive person. So I did my degree in sports management at university. I had plans to go into football. I had my career dream was to manage Arsenal Football Club. That was my career dream, right? I was going to be like the first team manager of Arsenal Football Club. Now that is a very long journey, right? You'll have to build up so much reputation, build up so much experience. That was never going to be a 5-year thing I get to,
Yeah,
or thing I get to after 5 years coming out of university. It's more a thing you get to after 20 years coming out of university. I didn't have that time,
yeah,
right? I wanted to settle down, have a family. I didn't have time to wait around. Um, so I kind of put my CV online and got contacted by a recruiter, and I kind of pivoted into recruitment. So I
yeah,
went from someone that was doing a lot of man management and football coaching, all that stuff, into recruitment very early. That was my first job out of uni. And I did okay. Like, I had really good transferable skills, from my football coaching background. You have to be super, super clear when you communicate. Yeah, really have to be an excellent communicator when you're coaching or manager. You have to be able to, communicate what you want, how you want it, very, very clearly, in a way that's very easy to understand for a group of 20 people all at once, right? um you have to make tough decisions. You have to be a dad, you have to be a coach, you have to be a therapist, you have to play so many different roles depending on the individual that you're working with, right? So all 20 people I was managing, or 22 people I was managing, all had different needs as football players and as human beings, and you almost have to like chameleon yourself to be able to support what their needs are. So that gave me a really good skill set to go into recruitment, because now I'm picking up the phone and I'm trying to build relationships with people. I'm trying to do business development, and you're taking all that learning and just how to communicate clearly, how to sell because as a football manager, you also have to sell an idea. You have to sell a vision, right? You have to sell,
yeah,
I don't know if you're too much into football, Alper, but you have to sell a vision, a philosophy of how you want your team to play, how you want them to execute certain actions. So if you kind of transfer that into sales, is you have to sell, you have to sell to a company that they should partner with you, or in recruitment in this case, you want to win their business. They're hiring, and you want to you know be hired as a you want to be given a retainer for a particular set of roles. So like, you're always selling something. I've always been selling something, whether directly or indirectly. So I fell into recruitment, did that for a year, then went into just cold business development, very transactional, high velocity sales, closing deals in one calls, in doing more consultative selling, and did that for a year and 8 months. And then I transitioned to SaaS.
yeah,
And then when I landed in SaaS, I started obviously as an entry level SDR. Within about a year, I became a team lead. Then maybe another few months, started leading SDR team of six to seven people, as well as field marketing, at a company called Dynamic Signal, which was an employee communications platform. Then after a year, Mum's had transitioned to Clary, which I've been ever since. Again, just came into Clary. We had maybe 2 people here when I was talking to the company in Europe. We had 2 people in Europe. Joined the team. There was 4 of us by the time I joined. And then really just helped to cover everything pipeline related in the region. So really looking after growth, right? And pipeline and everything in regards to that. And then of course I transitioned into a closing role after a year. So that's kind of been my very interesting short journey in SaaS, right? But yeah.
Excellent. Just a note for the editing section. If you don't mind, you need to shorten the answers to 1 or 2 minutes. We'll cut it to them, because if it just
yeah.
Well, when it's long-winded, I should have told you that before, but don't worry, we'll do that, because some of the questions you already answered. I think we'll just do like 1 or 2 minutes. Is that okay? 2 minutes max. Let's aim for that. Okay, great.
I talk fast.
I'm going back. So for those who are not very familiar with Clary, can you explain a little bit what the product is and how you've become successful in such short time?
Yeah, absolutely. So Clary today, in a couple of sentences, is a revenue platform that helps revenue leaders drive growth, efficiency, and predictability. As in this kind of high growth startup environment or scale up environment that we're in, sales leaders are looking to win. They're looking to win more deals. They're looking to hit their number. And what Clary does is to provide that visibility that they need to win more deals and hit their number, to provide them a scalable way of driving growth in their business and to drive more collaboration and governance in their processes, pretty much.
Yeah, that's excellent. Every conversation I have with leaders, it somehow leads to something around data or insights. I think everyone's looking for ways to understand the client better so they can serve better. You being one of the first founding employees, etc., how was that experience for you in this giant, high growth environment?
Yeah, so I think the first thing when I joined was we spent a lot of time trying to establish our ICP in Europe, right? That was like the first thing. So we spent a lot of time in spreadsheets, understanding which accounts we should go after, why should we go after them, and then really then starting to build some kind of territory plan that makes sense for our sellers to then go and execute on. Right, that's kind of the first thing, and then from a sales cycle perspective, it's really like a lot of it when we landed in EMEA was educational. No one knew what Clary was. It was all very educational. It was like, what is Clary? A lot of my phone calls I was making, what is Clary? What does Clary do? So a lot of it was education, brand awareness. And when we were lucky enough to get into a cycle, it was then, again, more education and just trying to help leaders see how they could do things better than what they were already doing, right? That was what it was like in kind of those early days.
Yeah. And you were obviously selling the dream or selling the vision. I mean, I like talking about people's strategies when it comes to creating urgency, convincing the clients. And you are very well trained in that in your football management days, obviously. Selling the dream, selling the vision, creating buy-in to that. Do you think those skills were transferable to your life in sales?
Yeah, 100%, especially the charisma. Right, charisma is not a word I hear too much among salespeople, but charisma is really important when you're selling to executives. Like believing in what you're selling and just the charisma that you can transmit to the customer is really important, and that's something that really gets you over the line. Again, just being very clear about what this is, what it does, and how it can help them. That is really like fundamentally what they care about. How can they help them be better leaders? How can they help them be better coaches? How can they help them be better operators? That is it.
Absolutely. And to become the well-rounded salesperson that you are today, I think I had a bit of a similar experience of like seeing both large complex deals, high velocity, how things are different, because they are quite different. I guess how was that transition for you from that high velocity, let's close the deal, to a more consultative approach or tackling like complex deals? Did you have to develop certain skills, or were things a bit different for you? Like
yes. So I had to develop certain skills, and the skills I think kind of top 3 would be how to ask very deep questions to get to the real pain. How to go high, wide in an organization. That's the second one.
Mm.
And how to essentially go from I'm selling to you to I'm selling with you. Those are the three skills I would
Love
say
it.
are very different from transactional high velocity to kind of more enterprise
Uh,
consultative sales.
I think I fell in love with those 3 tips actually, especially 2 and 3. I want to dig into 2. How do you go wider
Yeah.
in the organization, which is something that everybody
Yeah.
preaches, um,
Yeah.
but I don't think everyone does it so well. Like on a scale of 0 to 10, how well do you think you perform in that department?
I think at Clary we drive a really rigorous process around multi-threading. So,
Yeah.
we know who our buyers are, we know what their pains are, we know what they care about. So as soon as like we're very early in the cycle, we're already kind of mapping out, who we need to speak to. We target sales ops, sales leaders, CRO, number one customers are CRO. So depending if we're, most of the time, especially in our early days at Clary, we were stuck in sales ops, right? Sales ops were who we're speaking to most of the time. And yeah, rightly so, they drive all the tech stack, etc. But we had to get we didn't get good deals done until we got to sales. Actually, I don't even know we got any deals done if we didn't get to sales. So we always had to get to sales leadership. And really that's like VP of sales, director of sales, CRO, chief customer officer, etc. So that is, and then really when you map that out and you know what they all care about, then it's just a matter of outreach. How do you actually put together an outreach campaign or outreach plan to actually, touch each and every single one of those personas. One thing we do really well at Clary as well is we're really good at activating our leaders and board members. So what I mean by that is, we will write notes for our VP to send to another VP. So we get our VPs connected to VPs, our customers. We get our CRO connected to CRO, our customers. We get our CEO connected to CEO, our customers. Like we do that really, really, really well. And yeah, we just do that extremely, extremely well. And of course, we have board members that are very involved. So, we might have a really big deal that we're working on, and one of our board members might sit on another board of a customer that we really care about, or is connected to maybe an operator at a customer that we really want to win. So we just get a note from that board member sent to that operator, right? And then that's how we build a connection. So we really activate our leaders and our C-suite and our board members at Clary, and that's how we're really successful on multi-threaded. And that's how I've got really good at it.
I love everything that you say. There's so many best practices that you share in that short sentence, and something that I realize is sometimes outreach prospecting is seen as an SDR activity, and I always say like you are an SDR if you're whatever level. Like your job as a leader is to develop business and open new opportunities for your team, isn't it? I love how your board and everybody is involved in that. You mentioned something which I'm really curious about. You mentioned that you have a very clear idea of what leaders are looking for, what are they interested in, and sales leaders. Can you share a little bit about that? Like what are sales leaders interested in?
What's not working? What's stopping growth? Right? Why they're losing deals? And how to get the B players to become A players.
Yeah.
Those are like, for me, without being too elongated about it, other things that leaders care about. I can repeat them if you want, but I can also dive deep into a particular one. But in the interest of time, is there any that you want me to dive deep into?
I think first I would go with whichever you want to dig into, but I especially like number 4, which is how do you turn mid performers into top performers. But let's go in your order.
Yeah, this is a big one. Yeah. This was actually the one that I was going to touch on first, if you didn't ask. So this I don't know if you know. It's like I'll tell you a very quick story. So I'm in this WhatsApp group with other sellers, and there was like a poll that came out in this group. I said and there's like 200 people in this group, right? And it was like a survey of how many of us get coaching, right? And you would be surprised that about 80 to 90% of us don't get coaching, right? From our leaders. It's crazy, right? Now, that's nothing to do with my leaders. Like, I'm pretty happy with how my leaders go about coaching. But I think just for the AEs out there, a lot of them are not getting coaching today. And you might dig into the reason why. It's because, their VPs or directors of sales are very busy with more strategic stuff. But actually, the fundamental first responsibility you have is coaching, not strategic stuff. It's coaching. So I think that you can't, first of all, if you're a director of sales, you're head of sales, and like you are thinking, how do you get my B players into A players, but you don't want to do the coaching, then you're in dreamland. Like you're in dreamland. You don't get it.
You just want it done. You just want it done, but you don't want to have anything to do.
Like you just want to get in your like dashboards and your fancy reports. Like that's not leading. I'm gonna say it out there for anyone listening to this podcast. Leading is not dashboards and reporting and like having fancy conversations with data. Like it's just getting in the trenches with people and coaching. So that's how you turn your B players into A players. When you lead by example, you show them how they're doing things, the gaps that they could fill, and teach them how to do things better and more efficiently. And then they can see the results from it, and then pat them on the back when they get the results from it, right? So that's for me. The beauty about data is that data can help you turn your B players into A players, because you can see through loads of tools out there that give you loads of analytics around, how a particular performer, for example, tools like Clary Copilot or Gong or like Mojo, like those are tools that are available to show you what your reps are doing well and what they're not doing so well. And you can tap into what they're not doing well and make it better and tweak it, right? You have all that conversational intelligence inside there to tell you, hey, when your reps are talking too much, they lose a customer. When they've not asked enough questions, they lose a customer. So these are things you can use this insight that we didn't have before, right? Now you have it, you can use it to coach. So now there's no excuse of why you can't actually do the coaching. So that's the first thing for me, is what leaders should care about. How many leaders care about it? I don't know. But leaders should care about turning their B players into A players. Because at the end of the day, reps, if they look back on their career, they're always going to remember the managers that help them to make the most money. I'll pull it out there, right? That is what the reps will look back on. Which manager helped me to make the most money? And you want to be that manager. If you're not the manager that helped them to make the most money, you've not done a good job. You've not been a good manager.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point, but it's not that. I think everybody at the end of the day cares about it, but how much do they really care about it? Because also, it's a very difficult task to coach people, to grow people, and we're very sometimes quarter to quarter, living short-sighted about the targets, etc. Your priorities might go somewhere where you feel more comfortable. Or I've seen some leaders, quote unquote, sitting in their ivory tower and just don't want to get their hands dirty and ask, to create some decks to present with some numbers, but never really doing the hard work of actually understanding what are the common missteps about our reps, how can we improve on them. And I remember myself, I didn't really have much of that data in my early days of leadership. And that's exactly why we're trying to build those insights into Flowla as well. Because we see that 26% of winnable deals are falling into cracks because your reps are just not multi-threading or following up in the right way, sharing the latest and the greatest. So those things that are avoidable, and now data shows it to you, just like you say.
Yeah, I mean, if you are, in your Eiffel Tower somewhere, you're not a leader. You should have a different title, right? A leader is someone that leads. That's the key thing. Not build reports or dashboards. That leads by example. So if you're not leading, you're not a leader. You should be like, I don't know, go to sales ops or something. Like, that's just my opinion, right? If you're not helping your reps to win deals, you're not a leader.
Yeah.
I'm brave enough to say that, right?
No, I love it. And I think people just like when you just say what everyone else is thinking. So that's exactly what you're doing. And this is probably going into the teaser of this episode. So if anybody wants to listen to this episode, this is probably going to be the teaser for it, which I love it. Like the whole idea of sales therapy is to talk honestly about what everyone else knows. Like, not the point to brag, just say the truth as it is. One other thing that I wanted to discuss with you, I think you're very eloquent, as I said before, in the way that you express things. I think it helps to be. I'm not a native speaker of English, obviously. I'm Turkish myself, so I always admire people who put their thoughts into very well and eloquently created sentences. One thing that was really striking for me was when you saw Flowla for the first time, you put it into better words than I ever could at that point. Or clarify. What do you think about the tools in our space these days, like buyer enablement in general, Flowla, or our competition? What do you think there's a future for those? Where do they sit? I'd like to hear your opinions a little bit about that, if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a future? Yes. Why? Because leaders today are looking to get even more predictability around key deals that they're working on, right? Predictability in the deals is super, super important for leaders today, especially now, there's high growth targets. It's just high targets, right? You got to close as much as you got to close, right? So to do that, tools like Flowla, your competitors, it's super helpful because you are giving leaders, true insight and true predictability around what's truly happening in a deal, where you're at versus what the sales reps happy ears might tell you, right? You're giving true visibility around, how engaged a buying committee is with content, how engaged they are with the rep. So I think tools like Flowla and, competitors in your space are going to enjoy more success simply because there's a need for more predictability in the sales cycle.
Yeah. And how do you feel? I don't know how things work at Clary, but how do you feel about playbooks and compliance to playbooks, especially when it comes to complex deals? I know some organizations are quite strict in the way, stages, what you have to do by each. They put a compliance score. And of course, you're a very experienced salesperson, so you might do some of those things naturally. But for those who are not doing those things naturally, how strict do organizations have to be about their playbooks and compliance, do you think?
Yeah, 100%. Especially, in enterprise sales, you have to have some guardrails around what you need to do to win the deal. Like, playbooks are important because for new reps, it's really important for them to see what's working, how can they emulate, and how can they see success in a repeatable way.
Mm-hmm.
That's why playbooks are important.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not doing it as a company, you should be doing it as a company. If you're hiring someone in enablement, they should be putting that together. If they're not, they should be, and they should mandate them to do that. Because at the end of the day, fundamentally, the most important thing to a CEO is revenue. Revenue comes from your customers. So if whatever you're doing in enablement, in leadership, if it's not tying into how to win deals more predictably, quicker, with more velocity, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. I love how
right?
we
That
the descriptions today in this in this episode, and I completely agree with that.
What are you doing? Okay, we have really fancy titles in tech, VP of enablement. What are you doing to affect deals?
Yeah.
And how are you helping your field to win more deals? And are you making it easy for them? Is it understandable? Is it digestible? That is your mandate. There's so many fancy titles out there, and almost sometimes you don't even know what do you actually do, right? Let's put it down to affect the bottom line revenue. That is your first responsibility, right? Not rolling out a bunch of training that is not going to impact me directly. It's not going to help me to win more.
Yeah,
I just part of that stuff, right? How are you affecting revenue growth? That is key. I hope I'm not ruffling feathers today, but I just gotta say it, right?
I think you're just speaking the truth that everyone else thinks. And to be honest, everybody cares about those very specific things about what are the tips? What do I have to do? Tell me what I need to do, and I'll do it. And somebody has to collect them together. Sometimes it's in a revenue enablement function, but then somebody has to coach you on that, which is going to be your leader, your line manager. So I think those are very legit. Maybe one or two follow-up questions to this, and then we can move towards the final section. My follow-up questions will be this: what's a complex deal for you, and what skills, tools, strategies you have developed over the years that you would advise more junior reps to develop so they can close more complex, higher ticket deals?
Good question.
Hold
So the
them
first
long.
question is, first question is, what's a complex deal for me? A complex deal for me is when you have to navigate through loads of different stakeholders. You have to navigate through politics, organizational politics. When you have to, create a champion out of nothing. When you don't have a champion, but you have to create a champion out of nothing. And essentially have to get buy-in from C-suite. That, for me, those four things is what makes a complex deal for me, right? What skills do junior reps need to develop, or strategies to be able to close complex deals? That's the second question, right?
Yeah, it is. As I said, you're more eloquent than me.
Yeah. So I think the strategies that I think a junior rep should be developing is nailed relationship building, nail it. I think for me, it's impossible to close a complex deal without knowing or without having someone to partner with in the organization already. It's very difficult. Like it's very, very difficult. Like almost impossible. Like if you don't have a champion that is willing to partner with you and collaborate with you and learn from you and get guidance from you and then expose you to their world, it's not going to happen. You're not going to close complex deals. So I think for me, like learn the art of relationship building. Super important. Super important. Another strategy I think is definitely learning how to understand your customer's business really, really well. I think that's one of we have reps at Clary that are just absolutely amazing at this, and for me, it's so inspirational. Like, oh my god, they're so good at understanding the customer's business, understanding the customer strategic initiatives, how this solution they're selling ties into that, how they're going to deliver ROI. That is another, like, just learning how to build really good business cases is also a skill that you have to learn and develop. And it's not an art, but once you get really good at understanding the customer's business, their real pain, what they're trying to achieve as a company, and how you tie your solutions into that, I think as a junior rep, I think you'll be successful.
I love
Those
it.
those are the two things.
Yeah, and skills can be developed, but I think the basics, which is care, curiosity, empathy, those things you have to have them because, like, at least the basics of it, right? Like, I feel like if you don't have that basic, like if you don't genuinely care about somebody else's issues and problems, which is why I always call selling is like therapy, like you won't go very
Yeah,
far because you'll be bored. Like,
you shouldn't be in sales.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So then,
Shouldn't be in sales.
last question then, which is really a good leeway. And these were great advice, by the way. This makes me think, Michael, we have to have this on a quarterly basis because you're just throwing gold out there. And
Thank you.
maybe I'm a bit biased because you're just speaking everything in my mind. But anyway, whatever. So the last question then. You should be in sales if you have. You shouldn't be in sales if you don't have. What are those?
You should be in sales if you have. Oh, such a good question. You should be in
Or
sales
willing to
if you
build.
have.
I don't know.
Say again.
Or willing to build on, let's say.
Willing to build. Okay. So willing to build. So you should be in sales if you have a willing to build. You mentioned it. I think curiosity is a big thing. It's actually one of the most important qualities that you need. So you should be in sales if you have a desire to learn more about people, learn more about customers' pain points, what they care about. I think if you're charismatic, you should be in sales. If you are very good with people, you should be in sales. You're very good at communicating. You're very good at getting along with people. And people like if you're a magnet, if people like to be around you and learn from you and talk to you, like you should definitely be in sales for sure, because you have something that not many people have, which is the power of influence. You can influence people really well. And last one, you should be in sales if you have grit.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately true.
So if you don't, so you shouldn't be in sales. Probably if you don't have all the opposites of what I said.
Yeah, exactly. I think that explains everything. That's great.
Yeah.
That's been a great wrap up. So I'm going to move to the very last section. Actually,
Okay.
the whole conversation has been a bit like this section, which is great. Very specific tools, tips, methods, and you've been throwing them at us. But let me try in this way. So this is 3 fire rapid questions, all of them in under 1 minute. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, let's go. So, as a closer, what's your go-to strategy for sealing a deal?
Get your champion on text. That's my go-to strategy.
Yeah. Maybe send them a flow first. Anyway, just shameless plug. Okay.
But that works for me every time. Every time I get my champion on text, I close deals. I close the deal.
Okay. What motivates you in a sales role, and how do you think you can motivate others in a sales role?
Okay. What motivates? You're gonna laugh, but it's such a cliche answer. my commission. And then how can I motivate other people? Showing them my commission check.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
definitely do. I definitely do miss the days of having the commission. I don't miss the days of having to have my team to close as much as me to have my commission.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the thing about being a manager, right? Sales is one of those careers that as a manager, like your team can make more than you. It's just one of the only careers I know that your
Yeah.
teammates can probably make more than you.
And then you go crazy and decide being a founder and build something for salespeople, which is even crazier.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I say my
Avoid
commission is the most motivating thing.
Another question for you. As an entrepreneurial spirit, which you are, you
Yeah.
show that in your job and it comes across, but you have other hobbies, things to do, side hustles. How do you juggle them all together?
You can't. you just got to do it, right? You can't. When I say you can't do it in a way that it's balanced, right? Like you just can't. Like like your business might have serious needs, and maybe work is a bit more like quiet. So how do you juggle them all together? I think my biggest advice is just dive in, solve problems, and learn. That's the only thing. Like, don't worry about balancing them all. Dive in, solve problems, and learn, and just try to make a big impact on people. That's all you should worry about when you have many side hustles, because otherwise you get burnt out. You get to a point you're like, why am I doing this? And if you're not having any impact on people, if you're not learning anything, you stop, you quit.
Yeah. The moment you gave that answer, I realized this is exactly how I would have answered. So I don't think there was a way to set you up for a more formal and shiny answer like do this or do that, because it's the reality, and I feel the same. Sometimes something takes more time and energy,
Yeah,
but the burnout
especially
point.
building a company is so energy consuming, right? It's 24/7, and we have a lot of salespeople out there that aspire to be founders, which is fantastic. But you have to come to the reality of it. It's a 24/7 job. There is no work-life balance. It doesn't exist. And you can speak to that, but right? I can't. I'm not a founder. I have a business, but there's a difference between having a business like mine and being a founder of a tech company, right? So this is where grit comes into it, and just your passion for the value you're delivering and your passion to make an impact on people's lives. That's what's going to help you to wake up every single day and do what you do.
Yeah, I think you're not a founder, but so wasn't I. But then I realized I was almost like a founder in my old jobs, and I think you have that spirit to like very entrepreneurial ownership. It comes from the childhood, as you said, dependability. Once you own something, you own it like yours, which I think employers are really lucky to
Yes.
find people like you and us in that sense. So when I find those people, I try to make them happy. Anyway, like any good therapist, I'm gonna have to cut us on time, which we are. This has been an amazing conversation, Michael. Thank you so much for being one of my early guests and putting up with my hiccups and everything as I navigate this new role. But hope you enjoyed it too.
I did. I really did. You asked some great questions. Really enjoyed it. And it got me some things to reflect on too, right? When you're talking to someone, a lot of the times you're talking to yourself, right? So give me some really cool things to remember and reflect on. So thanks for a great conversation.
Thank you. That's a very kind thing to say. That means you were talking to a worthy person. Good. So if people want to find out more about you or want to reach out, where should they go? Is it LinkedIn, Twitter?
My LinkedIn. Yeah, my LinkedIn is the best place to go. If they want to find out more about me, they want to talk to me, just go to my LinkedIn. It's Michael Rummy Akinle. And yeah, I'm quite easy to find, hopefully.
Fantastic. Michael, this has been an excellent conversation. Thank you so much for doing me the honors. And that's a wrap on this episode of Sales Therapy. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to us on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platforms, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye.